of the United States of America
and to
and
the
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation
one nation,
Under God.
under God,
indivisible
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve our agenda this evening?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. I'll take Sophia as a first and Freya as a second. I, Freya. Lizette.
Aye.
Mary Beth.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
5+1, motion passes. Next on the agenda are communications, and we have.
Kimberly,
Yes.
can you give me just a second to announce that we have interpreted? So if there's anyone on the participant list, if they can just raise their hand so Josefina knows that she needs to start interpreting.
¿Lo dices en español?
Oh, ya, se me olvidó. ¿Está Josefina disponible para interpretar? Si hay alguien en los participantes que necesiten interpretación al español, si por favor pueden usar la función de levantar la mano para que Josefina sepa que hay alguien en los participantes.
And Rosie, just a quick question of procedure. Do people know how to raise their hands? I know it can be tricky in Zoom sometimes because you have to go through the participants thing. I don't know if you want to mention that.
My screen is not the same as a participant, so
Okay. I believe si están participantes, necesitan tocar el botón de participants y allí tienes la opción. It took me a while to figure that out myself, so I thought other people might need the help.
para solicitar que se traduzca al español, en las opciones de su pantalla hay un icono que parece como un mundito. En este mundito, denle clic y va a aparecer la opción de cambiar el idioma al español.
Eso es si están usando la computadora, pero si están usando un teléfono, lo que van a hacer es, hay una opción al final a la mano izquierda donde dice More, y ahí van a oprimir, y en una de las opciones es la que va a decir Raise Hand, y eso es lo que van a oprimir. Es un poquito más diferente con el teléfono.
Gracias, Lizeth. Okay, Kimberly, thank you.
Thank you. First, from our comments, we have Avis Calhoun. Rosie, would you please let Avis in so she can speak?
She's active.
Hi. So I can't see myself, which is a really strange kind of a thing, but oh well. I see myself all day long, so I should be really sick of that. Thank you for taking my comment. Good evening, board. So my name, as you know, is Avis Calhoun. I teach 5th grade at El Granada School, and I just wanted to make a very quick comment, okay? So I want to start off with an anecdote. I seem to sort of like anecdotes, and I was teaching my students a few weeks ago during a reading workshop lesson about aha moments, okay, which is when a main character in a book has a realization, which is very meaningful, and you teach your students to pay attention to that and to do some sophisticated thinking around that. And I would like to relate that lesson to an aha moment that I had this summer, okay? So this summer, we teachers were invited. We were asked to join countless focus groups, committees, meetings, task forces, et cetera, okay? And we were asked to do this over the summer when we're not working, right? When we're off the job, so to speak. We were asked to do that with the acknowledgement from the district at the time that they wanted and that they needed our input to help develop a meaningful plan to open the schools this fall, however that was going to be. And it came up at one point during one of these meetings. Someone had asked, a teacher asked, would we be compensated for all of this extra time that we were putting in? And we were told no, that we were volunteering our time. And I think, we understood that. So my aha is connected to that. At the time, I thought, well, why is the district emailing us on a nearly daily basis and asking us to be involved in all of these groups and spend hour upon hour and plead for our help? And this is the answer that I came up with. I thought likely because we as teachers are consistently community-minded and we're community-oriented and fairly selfless, actually quite selfless. And also because I think at the time, when the district knew that they needed us, they saw us as people, as individuals, as faces, as someone that you knew, as people that you could count on. And you counted on us. And so now and I think all of us teachers we are counting on you now. We're counting on you, the district. So as we move towards some sort of compensation agreement, I ask you to remember our faces. Remember our generosity of spirit, our generosity of time, and our intelligence that we showed this summer as we worked toward a plan to reopen the schools. And remember that. Please remember us that way. And I just want to end with a final little thought, which is related to a comment that George Bernard Shaw apparently is very famous for making. He apparently wrote some sort of drama series around over 100 years ago called The Man and Superman. And you've all heard this comment. We know it well. It's dismissive and it's condescending regarding teachers. You probably know what I'm going to say. Those who can do and those who can't teach. But I want to correct that. I want to change that to this. Those who can do, those who can and also show you how, they're the teachers. We are those teachers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Avis. Our other comments have been entered online, and I will read those comments for you now. The first is from Maria Culler. Excuse me if I mispronounce. I have known Aurora Doncor working for almost 7 years at the El Granada Elementary School office. All these years, she's been working responsibly and attentive to all my needs. I'm sure she's able to work from home efficiently as she did last year. Laurie McMahon, recently retired CUTA member and CUSD teacher. I am writing today in support of El Granada's community liaison, Aurora Doncor. I've worked with Aurora at El Granada Elementary for 14 years and know her to be an exceptional translator for important phone calls, written documents, and nearly all of my parent conferences during our time together. Working with her has always been a positive experience, and I appreciate her skill and ability to do this job. Last spring, during remote learning, as I was navigating this new experience of teaching remotely, I relied on Aurora often to reach out to families I believed to be in need of assistance, such as with technology, as well as translating my parent newsletters and other important documents. Most importantly, she assisted me with communicating with my newcomer who only spoke Spanish. Working from home, Aurora was able to accomplish her work very well. While Aurora has been diligent and professional in her work, she's also suffered from health problems, some of which are respiratory. In this very difficult time of pandemic, I encourage district administration to allow Aurora to continue working solely from home for the sake of her health and because she has shown she can do this efficiently. Thank you for your time. Okay. The next comment is from Nifa Patino from ELAC DLAC. I have known Aurora Donko for more than 12 years as a liaison for El Granada School and in our interactions at ELAC DLAC meetings. Ms. Donko has always been a responsible worker and representatives greatly relied on her for guidance and information. Today, I'm writing in support of Ms. Donko with the certainty that if she is allowed to work from the safety of her home during the pandemic, she will fulfill her duties effectively as she has always done. Next comment is from Guadalupe Mendoza, Padre. I am here writing to show support of Aurora Donko. She should be allowed to perform all her duties from home since other employees have been given this right. She will be able to effectively fulfill her job requirements from the safety of her home. She will continue to provide excellent service and support to our community and the families that live in it. Due to the current situation, pandemic, that we are facing, Ms. Donko should have the right to work from home. She is able to perform her tasks via Zoom, Google Classroom, phone calls, emails, etc., that do not require her to physically go into work. Overall, it is not fair that some employees have been given the right to work from home while she has been denied the same opportunity. From Nicholas Rudnewski. According to the CUSD, this is Concerned Citizen, according to the CUSD website, safety is a top priority at the Cabrillo Unified School District. However, this doesn't appear to be the case when it comes to employees who are considered high risk as it relates to COVID-19. More specifically to Aurora Donko, a beloved liaison who has passionately served in this role for the past 15 years. The website also states the Cabrillo Unified School District, CUSD, prohibits discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying based on actual or perceived age, disability, marital, family, parental status, or association with a person or group with one or more of these actual perceived characteristics. I'm unaware of any established policies that allow specific individuals at school sites and the district office to work remotely from home, but treat others with an utter disregard for dignity and offering unreasonable accommodations based on their high-risk status. The district administration has demonstrated a complete disconnect and disregard for a valuable employee's actual safety needs and ability to continue performing her essential job duties, much like she was capable of doing during the spring semester remotely from the safety of her home. Unfortunately, since we are in a pandemic, if the accommodations offered are not effective following protocols and fulfilling your duty to re-engage in the interactive process may not be afforded to any party if the initial unreasonable accommodations led to Aurora becoming just another grave statistic. When there has already been positive COVID-19 cases at Hatch, resulting in the need for staff to self-quarantine and work remotely from home, how can the district justify putting one of their longtime employees and family at risk instead of demonstrating compassion and providing reasonable accommodations so she can fulfill her job duties and continue supporting the community from the safety of her home? Cesar Sanchez, Concerned Citizen. I have known Ms. Aurora Donko for a good number of years, first as a parent of children who attended El Granada School, and later as an ELAC president for 4 years. Ms. Donko has shown genuine concern for the future of El Granada students and always encouraged us, parents, to have our children attend school regularly because, as she remarked, education is the key to success. In my years as ELAC president, I had the chance to get to know Ms. Donko better, and I could see how much passion she has for her job. I am writing on her behalf because I know of the severe health issues that affect Ms. Donko, and from March to June, she proved how effectively she can fulfill her duties from the safety of her home and not get unnecessarily exposed to the coronavirus that has cost the lives of young and healthy individuals. Thank you for your time. And the next comment is Marcella Hagan, former parent. I met Aurora Donkove many years ago. Our children went to school together. She is a Jones person and has worked for many years for the school district. Her health is very precarious, and she should keep working from home and not risk to get COVID-19. That would be lethal for her. She worked from home since April without any problems. Is a job that can be done remotely. Thank you for your consideration. And that ends our comments. Next on the agenda, we have employee organization reports. Do we have a CUTA representative with us this evening?
President Hines, did you call on me? I dropped out for a second.
Yes, please go right ahead.
President Hines, board members, Superintendent McFetridge, district office staff leadership. My name is Sean Reardon, and along with Claudia Lenstroth, I'm co-president of the Cabrillo Unified Teachers Association. Yesterday, CUTA leadership met with Dr. McFetridge for an hour and a half to modify and adjust expectations in the current MOU. This meeting had 7 agenda items, requirements for attendance and student engagement. We recalibrated site administrative expectations and the changing needs of technological platforms and instruction. All of this discussed and largely agreed upon in less than an hour and a half, and in a manner that was compassionate, open-minded, cooperative, and productive. On the other hand, tomorrow will be our 10th bargaining session, and we will address 1 agenda item. I know what the CUTA will bring to the bargaining table. It will be cooperative and productive. But today, I would like to know what CUSD management will bring to the table. Will it be the same exaggerated financial outlook that seems to be presented again tonight in agenda item 5F? Isn't this the same presentation we saw in June and July? Or will we hear Dr. McFetridge and CUSD management be open-minded and realistic expectations will be managed to be able to work cooperatively to span these differences? Will you, the board, understand and act on the urgent needs of some of the district's most essential employees? Today, we need your commitment to support and fairly compensate the educators of Cabrillo Unified School District. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
And we don't have a CSDA report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Then that brings us to our board member reports. Mary Beth, would you like to go first this evening?
Sure. I'm brief. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for making this back to school thing happen. I know it's been hard on a lot of people. A lot of people have been working really hard. So I just wanted to thank everyone for that. We're back. And looking at the smoke, maybe it's kind of a good thing that we're doing this. We haven't been having to worry about if we need to call a smoke day. So we're already there. And the silver lining, I talk about this all the time. I hope our kids and our adults are learning new ways to use technology, new ways to use technology and what we can do with it, and hoping that we can carry some of those skills that we've learned forward into the future. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mary Beth. Sophia.
Similarly, top of my mind since our last meeting is just to congratulate our entire school community for successfully kicking off a historic new school year in probably more ways than one. I have to say, just having watched the last, several weeks come together, I'm so truly and continually impressed with how people in all these various roles that it takes to make this happen, teachers, staff, administrators, families, our partners in the community. it's just this palpable sense of people coming together to meet the challenges of the current crisis. As we can all see, 2020 continues to prove to be the year that keeps on giving in ways we maybe would rather forego. But it's been amazing to see that come together. Clearly, the pandemic and those chronic societal issues that we have around social injustice and climate change have given us just layers of challenge. And I want to also recognize that for many of us, this is adding to the trauma that people have come into this situation with and compounding it, and in some cases creating new traumas for folks. Distance learning clearly is a challenge for even the most privileged family or educator, but it does add a layer to the crisis in many of our families that are continuing to experience because of those existing inequities in our society and in our culture. So I'm hoping that we can continue this momentum, this really amazing momentum of, as Ms. Calhoun spoke about, like seeing all of each other as people, like we're all people in this. I'm really thrilled that, again, we'll have on the agenda tonight honoring Hispanic Heritage Month and LGBTQ months to really celebrate and support those specific groups. But as much as we can continue that momentum that we've had in seeing each other as people that have that same goal around supporting our students, that would be, I think, that would be amazing to see. And I think that would be a welcome, more than silver lining, but welcome outcome from this otherwise really challenging and disruptive event. So thank you for everyone that's working to make that happen.
Thank you so much, Sophia.
Kimberly, will you give me a second? We might have people that need Spanish interpretation.
Okay, we'll wait just a moment.
Spanish. Si hay alguien en los asistentes que necesiten interpretación al español, si pueden, por favor, usar la función de la mano. La función la encuentran en las opciones de su pantalla abajo y es como una manita que se presiona. Si está conectado en su teléfono, en la parte de abajo del lado derecho hay una opción que dice More. Si le presiona ahí, le va a salir los idiomas en los que puede usted pedir su interpretación. Josefina está disponible para interpretar. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Lizette?
Can I go after Freya?
Sure. Freya?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Mary Beth and Sophia have said so far in terms of appreciation for all of our teachers and classified staff and our administrators and our parents and families, and in particular our students, for being willing to jump into this year and really make it work. It's just been really wonderful to see all of the ways that we've had to adapt, and just, want to reiterate again kind of that desire for, as we move forward, being flexible with one another and with the world and with circumstances as they change daily in terms of the pandemic or the smoke or the fires or all the different things that are kind of coming at us all. So I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for all of your hard work, and truly is appreciated. And hopefully there'll be some good luck tomorrow in terms of negotiations and following up on what Sean and Avis have said in terms of really us all coming to the page together and hopefully being able to support one another. Want to reiterate that. And I do also really appreciate that we've got the recognition months, which we've been doing over the last year. So I know those will be separate agenda items, but just want to kind of call them out. Again, how we're all individuals and all have our own issues that we're bringing to the table and that we're working on. So just want to say thank you to everybody and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Freya. Lizette?
Hi. That's the bad thing about going kind of towards the end is everybody has already echoed everything I wanted to say, and just thank everybody. It's definitely a challenge, I imagine, for the teachers as well as the families and the parents. Like Sophia said, this has been a challenge regardless of your economic status or how financially well off you are, but it's been very difficult for struggling families and I can only hope that it's going to get better. We need to have hope and continue to work together. So I thank everybody and hang in there because it's definitely very difficult. But we need to do it for our kids.
Thank you so much, Lizette. And for me, it's great because I can say, yes, I concur. I am thrilled that we have gotten off to such a good start. I know it's not always easy. I see it more from a coworker standpoint when I have a coworker who has 3 children on Zoom and doesn't put her video on because she's making sure there's bandwidth for her kids. And I know that she's so privileged to be able to have that situation and supervise her children while she's working. And so I just, my heart goes out to families knowing that there are complexities and it's not as easy for everyone to access. And so I'll ask more questions later, but it's really important that we're diligent, and anyone who notices a disconnect, meaning a family who isn't able to access for their children what they need, please do bring it to the school's attention and know that we really are working for the whole system to support you. I was thrilled just watching and hearing how complex it was for teachers getting off the ground, for librarian Lynn Carlton trying to get all of the, coming up with a system, literally like the day before everything went out, to issue Chromebooks at El Granada and then at Hatch. That was just this tremendous level of effort that I know that for some it felt like it took a long time on the parent side, but the rollout to be able to have that traceability, she came up with a wonderful scheme and had one of the paraprofessionals supporting her. And so I realized that there are a lot of people not doing their normal jobs. And thank you, because it does take a village. And I really appreciate that flexibility of our staff and knowing this is such an unusual time. So with that, I'd like to call on our student representative, Caroline Dodge.
Hi. So I'm going to start off with Los Litos Day Preschool. So they opened with in-person classes September 1st, and they have 24 eager 3 to 4-year-olds enrolled for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And the students and teachers are practicing the 3 W's: watch, wear, and wash. Watching for social distancing, wearing their mask, and washing their hands. And then on Wednesday, they have virtual classes that are conducted with parents, students, and teachers. And this month, in-person and virtual classes, they are focusing on Our Class is a Family and All About Me. For Kings Mountain Elementary School, they have 100% participation in distance learning. And luckily, all the families and staff were able to return to their homes after evacuating due to the fires. And the school wrote thank you notes to Kings Mountain Volunteer Fire Department to recognize their service and sacrifice. And they hosted a virtual art fair over Labor Day weekend, and their back to school event on August 26th was well attended. La Costa Adult School has 57 registered students for the fall semester. They have full ESL classes and only a wait list available at this time for ESL students, and a full CTE Modern Office Skills and Technology class, and still have space for HSE classes. They will not be holding Spanish classes this semester due to low interest at this time from the community. And this week marks their 3rd week of classes, and they will be fully remote for the fall semester. El Granada School continues to support students, families, and community during remote learning by implementing Spirit Fridays. The first Friday of the month, they are celebrating the community by wearing school t-shirts. And this coming Friday is Swim Spirit Day. And swim reinforces the school motto, be safe, work hard, be inclusive, and make good choices. And a big thank you goes out to the PTO that supports the positive El Granada school community. And lastly, Cunha successfully opened a fun Spirit Day via Zoom with all of the first period Spirit classes competing. And next Thursday is their back to school night, and they will be hosting a Zoom for parents at 6 p.m. and then inviting them to visit each of the students' classrooms by watching recorded class welcome information videos by the teachers. And the teachers have done remarkable work as they have learned and adopted creative techniques and technology applications that is making remote education both interesting and challenging. So hats off to them and all the families who are supporting our students at home. Thank you.
Kim, you're muted, but.
Thank you. Dr. McFettridge.
Well, I'm just wondering, I see Stig Lin as an attendee, and I'm just wondering, did he want to speak for CSEA or did we miss him? No, he did not. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Stig. Okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here and for raising their voices. I do want to echo the fact that I think it's very important that we mark that we are coming up on Hispanic Heritage Month to honor the heritage and the achievements of Hispanics, Latinos, Latinx, Chicanos, however we're going to use these terms, however people want to be described, and to mark that history. It is not just their history, it is our history. You don't work in a school district named Cabrillo Unified School District without remembering that history. So I think that's very important, and I know we'll talk about that resolution later. It is the second year that we've marked this, I believe, in the district. I also want to talk about LGBTQ History Month. You will have a proclamation on that as well, and October is LGBTQ History Month. And I've been working with Coast Pride and Jenny Walter and Jeannie Vargas, and we hope to bring a new equity policy in particular about sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression to continue to mark the need for us to really honor those folks' rights and safeguard their experiences also. Now, on a more global level, I want to talk about the decisions that are in front of us ahead and the decisions we've made. In the last board meeting, we talked about a time certain, a no sooner than date of return to school in the hybrid model of no sooner than October 17th. And I just want to point out that since then, you know, the waiver process has been created and people have asked me, well, what about a waiver? There are steps we would need to take to be able to take that waiver for elementary schools. And we've heard some people saying yes, and we've heard some people saying no. Just to put this all in perspective, in recent weeks, it is true, and you've heard about it from public speakers, that we have had cases at school sites in district office, and we've had contacts of cases, and these are community members, and I shouldn't say too much about who they are. We have to protect their rights also. But we do, I want everybody to understand that when there is a case and we identify a case and all our staff have a symptom checker, we take that very seriously because we want to safeguard the health of everybody. And then we asked about the contacts of the cases, and then we are required to quarantine those folks. To give it in perspective, the reality is that we have had impacts on our fellow human beings and on people in the district, and we've had to send out letters to communities. And I know that that can cause some concern. Nobody wants to be sick, and it has a real impact. So what I want everyone to know is that there are procedures and processes by which, when that gets reported, we investigate it, we trace those contacts, we communicate to those contacts, we may have to quarantine. If we were ever to return, when we return to school at some point and get kids back at school, there are particular markers too where we would necessarily maybe have to close a classroom or close a school if that threshold is increased. And so this is very serious because we know that the science as it emerges is showing us that young people are not immune. And older people like me and people of my age and older than me are certainly not immune either. And so these are of great concern. So when I hear that from the public, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we are thinking about health and safety first, because without it, what else do we have? So we have decisions ahead about return to school, and I'm hearing from people, hey, we should do this quicker and we should do this later. I just want to manage expectations. The requirement of a waiver would require us working with our bargaining units and with parents and families and our employees. And so I am talking about that with employees, and we would have to take steps. I was on the phone today with a private school head, and we were talking about the waiver process. There are 20 schools as of today that I looked on the San Mateo County Office of Education website that are applied for waivers. As I can read them, they are all private schools. So public schools are in a different situation than private schools because of the capacity that we have and because of the concerns we have and the readiness that we have, because private schools have more resources and are smaller. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear about that. This is going to be about us having an abundance of caution and being safe. And we do that for the interest of the community, of the district, of ourselves, of individuals and families, and our employees, and our students and their families. So that's just really serious for us. We heard at the top of the hour several comments from the public advocating and regarding the human resources concern. And I just want to say that we do have a commitment as an organization by policy and by law to following district policies and following state and federal laws to protect the rights of families, students, and employees. This is important to us. And although I'm not able to speak about individuals, nor are the board allowed to speak about individuals, please know we are aware of the concern, and we will work through the process and the procedure. And I have a commitment to that, and would communicate to people that we would do that, to individuals themselves and to the public. We must follow our human resources laws and our personnel laws, and we take those laws very seriously. And so I hope everybody understands that we are working through that process, and we encourage everybody to know that we are working through those processes, those legal processes and our own policies, so that we can safeguard the health of everyone. But there are processes and laws that we must follow. I do appreciate the advocacy. Again, I'm limited in myself to speak in particular about particular individuals. But we are aware of it, and we intend and are committed to working through the process. Speaking of process, I appreciated Sean Reardon's comments tonight, your CUTA co-president. In particular, I did find our meeting yesterday very productive and very amiable and very constructive, I thought. And we are seeing each other, as Ms. Calhoun said at the top of the hour too, as human beings. And I think we're getting to know each other better. And we do hope that we will go into a mediation session tomorrow and that we can continue to communicate. It is true that the budget, we are required on unaudited actuals to show the numbers, but I don't want to negotiate in public. I appreciate the advocacy again, but we do hope, and we are hopeful that we are going to get through this process and the mediation process and trying to comb through the budget and really look at ways that we could figure out how to bridge the communication that we've had in the past, the communication issues we've had in the past. I also want to thank Boys and Girls Club and other agencies, including the HEAL Project, and I know after school programs, enrichment programs, who've been partnering with us to try to use our facilities, to try to bridge this too, while we are in remote learning mode, to provide spaces for young people safely. Just so everybody understands that process, when an agency wants to use our facility, and I've been asked, how come the Boys and Girls Club can open? It's because we've worked very closely with the Boys and Girls Club. We've asked them for protocols and procedures. We've provided them space. And then I work with County Council in San Mateo to clear and to make sure that we're good. And then we help and we are facilitating them with technology, and we will continue to work with them. I know I was working with Lori Malliot earlier today with El Granada about these same concerns about after school and enrichment programs. Again, I think through partnership, through working together, through being cautious and through being very careful and communicating and understanding our needs, I think we are able to better communicate and try to make progress by better understanding each other and try to provide services for the students and families we serve, at the same time as heeding the safety of all our parties, including our employees. I want to say thank you to our certificated staff, our teachers, our classified staff, those who are working in support of families and other employees, our unrepresented staff, our administrators, psychologists, et cetera, everyone is working so hard. I have a teacher friend in Mountain View who asked me the other day, do administrators understand how hard teachers and other staff members are working during this time? I want everybody to know that we do understand that. We know that this is extremely challenging. And it's more challenging now than it was in the spring because we have these guidelines and we know that we have a different way of reacting. So we know that people are working hard. I do also want to acknowledge that if people are having problems connecting, please reach out to your teacher. Please reach out to your principal. We know that our principals, our assistant principals, our counselors, our psychologists, our community liaisons, office managers, anybody, we want to help. And so we hope that we will continue to get communication and continue to problem solve as we get these problems. We have had some problems in the last few weeks. The fires have been devastating. And so I really appreciate the work that the county has done, that Puente did, that Alas did, that the city of Half Moon Bay did, other partners have done in helping us set up the evacuation center at Half Moon Bay High School. I was really impressed by how this community came together to take care of people when some of our employees were displaced because of evacuation, how we were able to work with them to provide support. And that was because we were made aware of that. The smoke yesterday was eerie, uncanny, the strangest thing I've seen in my 55 years of life. This is a very trying time for a lot of people. And I've been really appreciative too of people like Caroline Morton and our school league services staff and our psychologists who have also been providing help and support groups to students and also family engagement efforts and to give groups to families and also to our employees. I think we need to continue to work on our mental health, our mental wellness, taking care of one another socially, emotionally. And I'll just say that I've appreciated this month more than ever, the sort of feeling tone of the community in really prioritizing taking care of each other and really working to support one another. So I think that's it. I just want to make sure that we're keeping this in perspective. We need to take care of one another. We need to take care of our students, our family, our employees, and we will continue to try to do that. And this is an ongoing process. It's a verb, it's an ing, it's a gerund, it is unfolding. It's not something that we just have an easy answer. And I so appreciate everybody working together to try to make that continue happening as we identify problems. And instead of saying, it's not fixed yet, it's not perfect, saying, this is an issue, what can we do? So I appreciate that spirit coming from so many people now in the coast side. So thank you, and that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. McFetridge. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lizette. Freya?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Mary Beth?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Lizette?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. Next on the agenda for general business, we have the proclamation endorsing September 15, 2020 to October 15, 2020 as Hispanic Heritage Month. Dr. McPetridge. You're muted.
I'm not going to read this proclamation word for word, but I do want to point out to the public that it's there. Again, this is the second year, as I understand it, that the district has celebrated this, and considering that we have about 52% of our students who identify as Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, Chicano, whatever that term is most appropriate for them, this is a very important month. It represents our history. This is a very important month. Over 500 years of time of Hispanic people in this country. I also will say that I think it's important too to remember the connection to the indigenous past of so many Latino, Latinx, Chicano, Hispanic peoples in the Americas. This land was originally a Lone land. I think in the indigenous tradition, they felt like the land didn't belong to them, that they belonged to the land. And I think that's important too, because there is a long, rich tradition of indigenous peoples and that history, if you know that history, that this is, I think the term is La Raza Cósmica, a cosmic race, a combination. It's a very multicultural, beautiful thing. And it is a beautiful thing about the Coast Side and this community. And really one of the greatest gifts, I think, that the Coast Side has is this long tradition, this long history, and there is a future ahead, and we have to keep looking at the future. The theme is Hispanic Americans this year, be proud of your past, embrace the future. And I just want to say it's marked by September 15th because that is the anniversary of independence of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and September 16th marks Mexico's anniversary of independence. So that's why the month of September 15 to October 15th is this. Hispanic Americans, Chicanos, Latinos, Latinx people have contributed so much to this culture and to this nation. And to this continent and to the new world. We just hope that everybody understands the importance of this month, honoring this, honoring the heritage, honoring the past, honoring the future, honoring the present of the young people we serve, their families, and what makes the Coast Side so great. So with that, I would hope that the board would, we recommend approval of the proclamation.
Thank you so very much. Do I have any other comments, or would you like to do our round robin?
I have a comment.
Thank you, Lizette.
So I want to just thank Dr. McPetridge for doing this. I remember the first year you brought it, I had tears in my eyes of joy and sadness and just hope all at once. So it's, you know, it means a lot, and it means a lot to people in this community who have worked hard, who have contributed, and who are, you know, great citizens and have helped Half Moon Bay be this beautiful community that people enjoy to live in. So it's an honor, and it's about time too. So I just want to say thank you. The other thing is, I want to invite the teachers, and maybe they are doing this as well, but I want to invite the teachers to somehow incorporate some of this into their curriculum and make also honor this and show students, because sadly enough, a lot of kids think that Cinco de Mayo is some special, you know, Mexican Independence Day, and it isn't. You go to Mexico and it's really nothing. It's only celebrated in Puebla, which is where they won a battle. But September 16 is, you know, and September in general for Latin America, it's a big deal. So I want to do that. I know last year, Dr. Patia tried to do something with artwork, and I know it's very different this year. But I really hope that this is ongoing, and that the teachers, just like they incorporate, you know, other ethnicities and other times, I hope that this is an invitation for them to do this for they're students who, for the most part, 56% of them are from, Hispanic descent. So thank you very much.
Just want to add a thank you as well. Just pulling on what a little bit of what both of you said, Sean and Lizette, in terms of really thinking of these months is not, it's sometimes the criticism of these proclamations is, why do you need just a month? It should be every day. And I want to make sure that we, that we do see this as a piece that like, it's kind of like a reminder and a practice to do it for these, two groups, the Hispanic heritage, this, from September 15th to mid-October, and then similarly for LGBTQ, which I know is next, but just to really use these opportunities to reframe our thinking about who we are, right? And we are, CUSD is all of these different groups, it's really the foundation of who we are. It's not just, extra here, extra there, but this is us. And approaching it that way and integrating that into the culture of who we are and into our practices, as Lizette, kindly offered as well, I think is really, an opportunity to do that as a reminder now, and then just kind of ongoing to celebrate and honor that diversity through inclusion and yeah. So I just want to thank you for bringing it to us, Sean, as a school community. And Leticia and everybody who was part of it.
Thank you. Other comments? Let's vote. Wholeheartedly, I say aye.
I think we need a motion.
Do we need,
I thought we had the motion already.
We did.
Apologies. Do I have a motion to approve our proclamation for endorsing September 15, 2020 to October 15, 2020 as Hispanic Heritage Month?
So moved.
Thank you, Lizette. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sophia. And now, wholeheartedly, I say aye. Freya.
Aye.
Mary Beth.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Lizette.
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. Next on the agenda is the proclamation designating October as LGBTQ History Month. Dr. McPetridge.
Yeah, just context. I'm not going to read the whole proclamation, but I invite and urge the community to also look at this proclamation. I think it's also very important, as September 15th and September 16th are very special days for Hispanic Heritage Month. October is the month that is declared as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer and Questioning History Month. And this is, again, about the rights and freedoms, equality of people also who have struggled over time with discrimination and who have broken through that and who have been civil rights heroes in our country. And again, when we talk about our community, right? I mean, being in the San Francisco Bay Area, so much of the movement was based either from the Stonewall riots in New York, which is sort of like the antecedents in October 1979, or 69, that was the 10th anniversary in 79 when this LGBT National March happened in Washington. But then there was National Coming Out Day in October of 1988. And every year on October 11th is celebrated National Coming Out Day and annual LGBTQ Awareness Day. I just want to say in our own history, we remember when marriage equality did not exist. So this is not just about our history, this is about an unfolding present and a future yet to come. And we know that LGBTQ individuals, and particularly students, are subject to discrimination and harassment on our campuses, in our streets, in our society, still to this day. And we are making such great strides toward that. And I think as a people, coming to understand why we can't have that kind of bigotry, but it is still a process. And so I think it's very important that we remind everybody with the October month, but every month, every day, that these are people and families of people. I say this too, being the father of a son with lesbian moms, right? I mean, this is family for me. This is personal for me. It's an important reason why I've made such work myself personally in this group, is because it's personal to me. It is our neighbors, it is our family, it is our friends, it is our fellow citizens. We believe that all students deserve to feel safe and welcome in their schools, to be known by their preferred name, to be known by their preferred gender identity, to be known by their stories, and to see themselves represented in their curricula. And like was said earlier, I think by Lizette, it's not just 1 month. This is all the time. Black History Month is all the time. LGBTQ History Month, it should be all year long. And Hispanic Heritage Month, it is our heritage, it is our history, it is our present, it is our future. So I will say that I greatly appreciate the work of Coast Pride. And as I said at the top of the hour, we hope to bring another equity policy, in particular about sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression, so that we can make sure that we have the data and training, so that we have welcoming schools, that we understand the issues, we understand our students, and we support educators in providing services to them. Last spring, you saw that SOGI awards, Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, Gender Expression Awards, were given to the board and certain administrators by Coast Pride. Again, I think this is work that is ongoing, that is important, and we use this month to contextualize and to mark the work we need to do. So we celebrate October as LGBTQ History Month. We recognize our need to understand that history and to continue to work to make sure that it's in the curricula for our students and that we uphold the legal rights of LGBTQ people. And with that, I recommend approval of the proclamation.
Thank you, Dr. McFetridge. Do I have a motion in support of our proclamation designating October as LGBTQ History Month?
So moved.
Thank you, Lizette. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, sorry, Beth.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. And here I would like to add comments too, because this is family for me. And I think it is very important. It's not always visible out in the world. And so comments that are made can sting, and it's not always obvious. So for our community, I am very appreciative and fully support this proclamation. Do we have other comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to also, express my support for this proclamation and appreciation, Sean, for bringing this and the other one as well. And also just commend our students, our children. I feel like when you recount the history, I think about all that we've learned and the evolution that's occurred. And like you talk about the marriage rights and other things. And I think that when I look at my children and how they express and accept the people around them, it's all evolving in this direction, which is just really amazing. And so I know that there are children involved in some of these groups. They've spoken to us in the past. So I just want to really appreciate the next generation that's moving this and other bars in terms of racial justice and other ways and into the next steps that we need them to take. So it's fitting for it to be here on the Board of Education as well.
I can just add thank you also to I'm glad, Sean, that you mentioned Coast Pride, that has been so instrumental in supporting us over the last year or two in terms of supporting our students in particular. Similarly with ALAS and other groups that have supported our Latino community. And just to reiterate, the big picture is schools are one big part of our community, especially here on the coast side. They're in many ways the heart. And so to be able to partner with one another in all our different roles, most of the time, any individual plays more than one role, and to really see the humanity in each other, regardless of where we come from, what we look like, what we sound like, et cetera, constantly in all the interactions. And I keep coming back to one of the things I love most about our high school and Ms. Principal Nazar is it comes down to kindness and really that compassion to look at each other as human beings and as partners and, as part of the greater good together that we can do. So, thank you for bringing this to us, Sean, as well.
I think we can move to a vote now. Wholeheartedly, I say aye. Freya.
Aye.
Mary Beth.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Lizette.
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. Next is an information item, and this is approval, well, it says approval, of opening of school handbook information. I'm sorry, wrong item. 5C, approval of learning continuity and attendance plan. And this is an action. Dr. Bhatia.
Good evening, President Hines, Governing Board, colleagues, and community. And we are here today to present an overview of our learning continuity and attendance plan and ask our Governing Board for approval. And Rosie, will you be projecting the presentation? I don't see it. Thank you.
Leticia, did you want me to control the screen or you want to control it?
Well, maybe, do you mind controlling it? Because on my end, I see it's very tiny on my end. Thank you.
No worries, I'll control it.
I appreciate it. And we can go on to this next slide. I can attempt to do it. There we go. Okay, thank you. Senate Bill 98, which was approved in June, made several key changes to accountability requirements for local education agencies and school districts across California. Included the establishment of a new requirement, the learning continuity and attendance plan, that needs to be approved and adopted by September 30th, 2020. Now, the contents of the Cabrillo Unified School District's learning continuity and attendance plans are aligned with the opening of schools plan that we presented to the board over the summer. Now, the learning continuity and attendance plans will memorialize this ongoing process of working with our opening of schools steering committee, task force groups, and focus groups. Next slide. Thank you. The LCA plan, and for the purposes of not mixing it with the local control accountability plan, we will be referring to this plan as the LCA plan, provides our stakeholders with details on our learning as well as our attendance changes during this remote learning setting. And as an overview, and as we presented at the last board meeting, it has 8 main sections: stakeholder engagement, continuity of learning, and in particular, the in-person instructional offerings and the plan of when we will get to that, distance learning programs, pupil participation progress, distance learning PD, and staff and role responsibilities. The third section of the plan is pertinent to pupil learning loss strategies and particular assessments and how we are measuring the loss of learning for our students, as well as how we will plan to accelerate the learning throughout this academic year. Another also very important section is our mental health and well-being and how we are going to address this in ensuring that our students are ready to learn and address and be able to absorb the teaching. Next is our pupil family engagement and outreach, school nutrition, and last but not least, particularly calling out what we are doing above and beyond for our at-promise students, our foster youth English learners, and low-income students. And Rosie, you can skip to slide 5. Thank you. The LCA plan was, we started the development of the plan when we started our opening of schools planning. We were forward thinking and ensured that we engaged various stakeholder groups who contributed to providing input on the various areas of the LCA plan. And again, this input was previously presented to you. And this included, of course, our CUSD bargaining units, teachers, parents, principals, school personnel, administrators, parents of students with disabilities, and general education parent meetings. And as well as yesterday, at yesterday's board meeting, we did seek for information and input from stakeholders during our public hearing. And please know that we will continue to obtain input and adjust the plan as needed in order to ensure that we adhere to any new guidance that is provided by San Mateo County Office of Ed, the California Department of Education, the CDC, and California Department of Public Health. Next slide. And the next slide, you will find the data around parent and staff input in regards to the learning models. And of course, currently at this moment, we are still in remote learning, but when the conditions and when it is safe to open, we would proceed to that phase 3 of instruction, but of course, beginning with a very early phase two of small groups. But just wanted to remind you that this was the stakeholder engagement input that we received from parents in our community, as well as our teachers. And the next slide is also just an overview of the dates where we held these various stakeholder engagement meetings. And to that last bullet there, August through June, we do plan to continue to engage our opening of school steering committees. Our task force have not stopped since August. They have continued to meet weekly on a weekly basis to provide ongoing input on various aspects of this whole remote learning school year. And the next slide shows our main stakeholder focus group themes, which were already previously presented, but we just wanted to bring this back to you and to the community to kind of summarize what were the themes from our stakeholder groups. And these recommendations and input guided our teams to write the learning continuity and attendance plan. And the next slide, Mr. Contreras will be providing an overview.
So I just want to remind the board that SB 98 is the budget bill, and that with the budget bill, traditionally we would have brought to you a local control and accountability plan. But because of the COVID-19, what happened is now that for the first time, we got some of the funding, the federal funding, coming together with our state funding to bring us a California budget. Traditionally, we only have state funds in the as we think into the local control and accountability plan, because this time at the Mays revised, we only had the state funds. At the time of the signage of SB 98, we had state and federal funds together and coming to serve students. So what it's now required under SB 98 is then that amalgamation of state and federal funds that come together into this plan, which accounts for the loss in learning and the attendance during this difficult and challenging times. So throughout the plan, you will see actions and services with some cost associated to those very notions of loss of learning and accounting for our what are we going to do about it. So slides 8 and 9 are examples of this. Now, in a typical we also, in a typical local control and accountability plan, we have elements also of how do we know that our what we call unrepresented students are getting the services that they would need to get ahead, to accelerate their learning. We also have this in here, and typically under the LCFF funding, there is approximately $2.1 million that we would need to account for to make sure that our populations, our underrepresented students, are receiving minimally, in this case, about 8.85%. It is used to accelerate and to increase or improve the services that we have that. Of this year's $2.1 million, 8.85% is what we needed to apply to that end. And I just wanted to call to the board that in the actual document on what's page 28 of 31, where we account for the percentage to increase or improve services, we will be amending with Leticia that state dollar, which is LCFF dollar, that we are accounting for 8.85 of the $2.1 million. Now, the reason why we're going to be doing this is because we have this federal dollar, and what you have in that page is accounting for the federal dollar. In the federal dollar, we were saying of the new federal dollar that it is included in this plan, of those dollars, at least 70% of those funds are going to be applied towards the increase or improvement of services. But we are required to also put in there the state dollar, which is the LCFF supplemental dollar, which accounts for those amounts that I gave you. All in all, this plan is directed and with the idea that we are going to be serving students to mitigate the loss in learning that occurs as a result of the COVID-19. So on the next slides, and Leticia is going to be more in depth as to what that means. So throughout the plan, you will see these types of actions and services, and then at the next slides, you will be getting then also, Leticia will go in more detail what that means and what those actions are going to be.
Thank you. And slide 11, Rosie, thank you. There we go. Okay, so this is the last portion of the LCA plan, which will define the increase and improve services, and the 8% that Mr. Contreras is referring to. Please know that we are going above and beyond in utilizing the funds to support our at-promise students, which includes our foster youth ELs, low income, students experiencing homelessness, students with disabilities, and other students who are being affected by COVID-19's learning loss. And I do want to say on this slide, I won't read every bullet, but one of our biggest accomplishments is the formation of a CUSD team of teacher trainers. And as you recall, in the summer, we did mention that we had 6 teachers who attended the San Mateo County Office of Education Professional Development for Remote Learning. There was a high demand for this professional development to be provided again, and we had an additional 5 middle school teachers attend a shortened version of the training that started actually this week. 11 elementary school teachers and 1 preschool teacher. And a large portion of the funding in this particular section will include the professional development, which, for example, would be the San Mateo County PD paying for not only the cost of the conference, but also paying for the hourly pay of our teachers. It also will utilize funds for hourly pay for not only the delivery of professional development by our own Cabrillo Unified School District teacher leaders to other teachers, but also the planning, because it, as you can imagine, a 1 hour presentation takes an average of 4 hours of planning. And we recognize this, and we want to make sure that we compensate our teacher leaders accordingly. We also have heard from our teachers that, our teacher leaders, that has been a very high need and request from our classroom teachers for office hours from the leaders that are experts in ed technology. And so we are going to approve office hours and follow-up with our teachers, because as you can imagine, the conversion of teaching in person versus remote learning, I myself I'm learning alongside our teachers. The Zoom, I call them Zoom wounds. I have a few of them. And the next slide. Thank you. We also are utilizing this one-time funding, federal and state funding, for various EdTech applications. And not only are we paying for the EdTech applications, we have about an average of 6 to 8 per grade level span, elementary, middle, and high school. And we also need support with integrating that technology application either into Google Classroom. I know our Department of Technology has gone above and beyond helping us roster our teachers or students. And so paying for those additional ed tech applications to give our teachers the tools they need to be successful. But also we would be paying our CUSD teacher leaders to offer different levels of training on the tech applications that we approved through our elementary, middle, and high school opening of schools task force team. Next slide, Rosie. And here you're going to see remote learning technology support, and also continued website updates to support students and family communication. Now, these do include documents and videos on our website to support our families. Also very important, and as you can see it's woven throughout the plan, is the support for our at-promise students. And this would include new online assessments, because in order for us to measure the learning loss, we need an assessment that will be valid and can be delivered in a remote manner and not in person. And so funding, we are using funding to purchase this year with Senate Bill 98 funds, ELA, ELD, math. And as you recall, Senate Bill 98, although of course we will assess our students in all subjects, Senate Bill 98 requires us to demonstrate and report at a later date what is our exact assessment plan and assessment tool in measuring 3 specific content areas, which are ELA, ELD, and mathematics. Next slide, Rosie. And this slide here will demonstrate additional supports for our at-promise students. And this includes our Wednesday planning time, which allows our teachers to receive additional training, allows them to collaborate with other colleagues. And as I mentioned, we're purchasing a new online assessments, and we'll continue to deliver ELD training for a designated and integrated ELD. Next slide. And also very important, we need to make sure that along with supporting our students, we need to continue to support and provide family engagement tools and continue to outreach for all families, but in particular our at-promise families. This would include professional development for our staff and community. And I do want to mention that the tools that we're looking into to support that student engagement, we have, as previously mentioned, we have purchased Zoom in order for us to be able to more easily communicate with our students and families. For actually preschool through 2nd grade, we purchased and have fully implemented Seesaw. It is a family engagement communication tool. And I do want to say that for TK through second, this morning I've looked at the engagement through Seesaw, which is a new tool. I don't have access to see the same thing with Zoom, but I did want to point out that in Seesaw, just today, in one day, our teachers have made over 3,200 contacts today using Seesaw. And so I just definitely want to say that we wanted to make sure that we had the input and we collaborated with our task force teams in order for us to look at the tools that really will support them in this remote learning setting. And this is just one of the examples of how these tools are working. And it's all, I just want to thank our task force teams and our teacher leaders that have continued to give us their input, and to thank them for doing the outreach for our families. And please know that we will continue to work on this and build outreach also with our partnerships in our community. Next slide. And this slide will just demonstrate some of our next steps. And of course, we would need approval from our governing board. The next step would be to communicate to stakeholders the 2 additional days of instruction in order for us to meet the 180 instructional days as required by the state. And also that these days, which I definitely want to mention that we collaborated, Dr. McFetrich and the CUTA leadership team in consultation and selected October 12th and November 23rd as adding those 2 additional days of instruction. And so we need approval from the governing board for us to amend that calendar and communicate that information to our families so that they are aware of these 2 additional days. Which I also wanted to mention that the instruction during these 2 days will be 100% asynchronous. Another next step would be continued stakeholder input. Please know that we have already established dates for this entire school year for our opening of schools. A steering committee, our task force teams meet on a weekly basis, so we will continue to do this throughout the year. And also wanted to point out that although this plan, Lca Plan will be approved, hopefully will be approved tonight by our governing board, that revisions will still need to be made. This plan needs to be reviewed by our San Mateo County Office of Ed Partners. And once we obtain their input, we have 15 days to consider their recommendations and make any necessary amendments if needed. But similar to the local control accountability plan, please know that as the landscape continues to change underneath us, that we may be able to amend and adjust. In case we have to, we will bring it back to board and let you know if we have to make any amendments. And the next step would also be the full implementation of these new actions and services. And the last slide are just any questions. Do we have any, I also wanted to I just want to thank all of our opening of school steering committee members, all of our district leaders, Dr. McFetrich, who just were instrumental in developing this plan. And it definitely has taken a village. And we just thank you. And now if you have any questions of Mr. Contreras or I, we're here to answer them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Batia. I do have a couple of questions. And well, first, I appreciate how much work has gone into this. And, you know, it's on one level, you're having to meet all of these state requirements for reporting. And there is the intent and the desire for due diligence to serve all of our community really, really well. What I hear and observe in this plan are, you know, training opportunities, helping the teachers in delivering services. Absolutely, all of that is needed. The piece I worry about is for our underrepresented students, our English language learners, low income, foster youth. These at-promise kids how do we know that we have that awareness of what their situation is for those kids that, whether they're latchkey kids or they're with a babysitter during the day because their parents are working and they don't have the right supervision to necessarily help them logging on with Zoom? I mean, is it the teacher's responsibility to say, yes, I took attendance, they were there or they were not? I mean, how can we be proactive for those students that if we can catch it before we know it's fallen through the cracks? I mean, and that's something that I would wish would be part of this. So I'm just trying to figure out how to ask the right question and show that connectivity. Because it may be beyond the district. Maybe we need to, to identify a specific need if it's beyond the scope of what we can do in this plan.
And so this is not addressed here because it's a service. So this plan does not demonstrate the current services that are already happening and have been happening over the last year. And so we do have a family engagement guide that we have shared with our principals, with our sites, with our teachers, and with our community liaisons. And it's actually a pyramid of communication of, yes, the first line of ensuring that we determine who is not engaged would be our classroom teacher. They take daily attendance. And there is a Google, it's an Excel sheet, but it's a Google sheet that is specific to that school. And teachers will put in notes in case they start seeing that there's no engagement and no presence. That's the bottom of the pyramid. Then after 3 days, if a teacher notices that a family is not engaged or a student is not engaged, of course, they will do the outreach for 3 days. And after 3 days, a couple of things will happen. Of course, if it's a family that's an English only family, English speaking family, the teacher will be able to communicate. Or if the teacher speaks Spanish, they'll be able to communicate. But then we have our community liaison. So if we need community liaison support to interpret, then the community liaison will then do the outreach, and then they will triage and they will determine with the principal why is the student not engaging? Is it lack of tools? Because if it's a lack of tools, that triage team will point the family or obtain those tools and give that to the family. Is it a lack of an educational setting? Possibly the child may not have a space that has Wi-Fi, and then we would help them with that. And if it's a lack of that, the parent, we've heard some of our families, they're having to take their children to work. And I mean, some of our own teachers bring their children to work and have them in their classroom. I myself have done that with my own kids. And so if it is that, then maybe we can point them to the right place, like Boys and Girls Club, at least for middle school, has a space for students to get engaged. Or we would problem solve with the parent. Sometimes it is also a lack of not knowing that the information is going through an email, and we are working with our community liaisons, and we're training them on a monthly basis to help the family. If it's a lack of not getting the email, then we would help them in signing up for a free Gmail account. And these are just some examples. And of course, that's the middle of the pyramid. And let's just say then after 3 days or after the principal, the community liaison, and the office manager and that team, that triage team exhausts their resources, then they get referred to our family engagement team, which would be our Rosalva and Mayra, myself. And then we would try to determine, okay, so what is the reason? Because we're very lucky to have employees that have worked in this community and can probably figure out and probably know who the family is and will make the appropriate outreach. Parents come into our family engagement center if they know where to find information. And so they'll come and they'll physically come. It is open on a daily basis. Also, I do want to just applaud our schools, because we do have staff at our schools every single day. So if parents need any help or guidance, they can come in physically to a school. And so we definitely have systems and have refined them in order to ensure that we address the need or determine and find out why is it that the child is not being engaged.
So if I can elaborate on that also a little bit, is that, as Leticia indicated, at the core of all of this are the students attending and are they engaged? And what are the metrics that we use for engagement? And so at the very core of that is, if a child is not engaged, what are we doing about it? And those are the kinds of things that immediately come as a result to our teachers and to all of us. And during the reopening of schools, we constantly kept on talking about the notion of all hands on deck. It'll take all of us. It will take all of us to ensure that we are spending on the measures that are going to be making sure that our children get engaged. So what you see in the plan are the bones of the elements of those things that we are going to be looking at and investing in with the state and the federal dollar to make sure that we get some kind of normalcy to our students who are most challenged. And truly, I mean, we have found out that, for example, regarding technology, if a family has access to internet and we have 5 children who need access to the internet, the story changes regarding engagement. Now we're going from, yes, I have access, to I need access for 5. How does that look like? So those are new problems, new issues that we are encountering, and that we are just taking everybody and going everybody, all hands on deck. What are we going to do about it? And moving forward with whatever we have, with the resources that we have to respond.
Thank you. My other question, and I appreciate that detailed answer, because I think that helps to understand that there are pieces in place to be reactive early. The other question I had relates to that early survey that you had the results in early July in terms of people's comfort level going back. Can you talk to, and I don't know if it's part of this plan or really maybe part of the handbook, but what are we looking at for decision practice for when it's safe, when we have everything in place to go back to school? I know the public really cares about how we're making that decision. And with so many schools in the country that went back early or even hybrid, knowing that teachers have been infected and kids have passed, the virus around, what do we as a community, what will we use as our guide for recommendations when we think it's safe to go back?
If I may, I kind of spoke about this at the top of the hour. I mean, we're going to tread ahead very cautiously, and we're going to look at this in real time. And I'm tracking what other districts are doing in the county, in constant contact with other district superintendents and with the county superintendent. You know that the governor and the state came out with a different color-coded system, purple, red, orange, yellow, I think it is. And purple's the worst, widespread, and this county is currently widespread. So there are certain metrics we have to follow before we could apply for a waiver. One, I tracked that data today on the County Office of Education. I said that at the top of the hour. Mostly it's private schools because they're equipped to do this. They have the capacity, the resources, the facility space, and smaller cohorts of kids. I think we are not going to be early adapters in this regard. I think we're going to try to follow other districts and sort of see what they're doing. And we would have to, if we were to apply for a waiver, consult with parents and consult with our bargaining unit members, our employees. Because at the end of the day, a classroom, the instructional core is a teacher in the presence of students in the presence of content. The curriculum piece, we're working that out remotely, but once we get kids back in classrooms, we have books, teachers have curriculum, but getting the students back, we're going to need to follow those 4 pillars, making sure we're masked, making sure we have 6 feet of distance to have a stable cohort, no large gathering, that we have time for hand washing, that we have hand sanitizers on our campuses, washing stations, et cetera, et cetera. So honestly, when I met with CUTA members yesterday, this is the concern that we would have with our bargaining groups. And I understand for the logic of confidence, for their security, that we would need to make sure to show, yeah, this is how we're going to do it. We have markers on the floors to show how the spacing is going to be, that we can work with teachers to make sure that kids can be remotely placed. So there's a lot of steps ahead. I do think what I hear in your question too is, how are we going to survey? You started with the question with the survey. I've heard at the Hatch PTO meeting that I was invited to on Tuesday that someone said, hey, we took that survey, but then I've seen emails too, that information has changed. We feel differently how we answered in the survey. I think Leticia, Dr. Patia, and Mr. Contreras would work with the Opening Schools Safety Committee to gauge principal input, and we would continue to work with CUTA and CSEA. And I've worked with CSEA on an MOU that's ongoing. CUTA, we would need to revisit that. So it is about triangulating families, you as a board, and us as a governance team, and employees.
Thank you.
Just real quick point of order. Do we need to have a motion before we discuss and ask questions, or?
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve our learning continuity and attendance plan?
So moved.
Thank you, Freya. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Freya?
So I just wanted to follow up real quick on Kim's first question, Leticia. It was also one that I had sent to Sean, to you via Sean, regarding the board packet. And I appreciate your explanation of kind of the difference between the triage team and the family re-engagement team. It sounds like it's kind of tiered or leveled. There was also the mention in the plan on page 23 of the plan of coordination of services team. Just curious how that fit into those two. And then I appreciated your explanation, and I was thinking that maybe it would be useful at some point to have a more detailed presentation on how those work together, and kind of even, I would appreciate knowing how they're working. How are we engaging kids? Like you mentioned, 3,000 hits today from Seesaw. Maybe at some point, maybe at the October board meeting, I don't know, Kim and Sean, you of course deal with the agenda and timing, but I feel like that's such an important part, is that engagement and making sure that we're capturing all of those kids. I would love to at least understand a little bit clearer the steps that we're doing, and then also kind of how it's working. And are there these areas that we need to be putting more resources in as we alter our learning continuity plan and other kinds of things? So kind of a question on clarification, but maybe it's not all answered tonight, I guess, is the second part of that comment.
The coordination of services team, not an SST, but it's a team at the site that basically looks at the academic or social need of a student. And so you have representatives that are not necessarily the triage team or the family re-engagement team. They could, in small schools, overlap, but it is a part of the MTSS plan. And so MTSS does support a COST team. It's usually abbreviated to COST. And Miss Ladd leads that work. And so we can definitely, and I'll just defer to you and to Dr. McFetridge to let us know when you would like us to co-present the family engagement piece, the site data, and as well as the cost information of what that looks like. Because at any point, even pre-COVID, we still try to build systems that will ensure that we capture and build those safety nets for our students. and give them those resources depending on what they need. We have been doing this all along. This is not new. We're just redefining that. And so, yes, we would gladly come and present. It's not part of this plan, but we can present an overview if that is the pleasure of the board. And Dr. McFetridge.
It's just something I'm personally interested in. I don't know if others are as well. And I appreciate that it's something you continue to do, but I just understand that it looks different now because of our remote situation. And it might also be helpful for the community or for parents as well to understand, okay, what are the different steps if my kids aren't engaging? How am I sure that they're being caught? Even linked to then also their assessments in terms of how they're learning as well, and that might provide some sense of reassurance for our parents and our community as well. So that'd be great. And then just real quick on the second part that Kim brought up, my understanding is that we're not really looking right now at what those criteria will be in return to school and other kinds of things that's something that later on as information develops, we'll be looking at more. Sean, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I've explained this to CUTA yesterday, I want to engage them in that conversation because it's part of our MOU and it's part of the waiver process. I'd have to do the same with CSEA, and we'd have to do the same with parent groups. So when I always talk about a balance between the community and the different social worlds we represent, if you want to call it that, the waiver process actually insists on that. So I am very much understanding that takes time, and there need to be assurances for our families, for our employees, and for you as a board, knowing the stakes as we do, to go forward and to be safe. So yes, I think this is going to take time, and just to manage expectations, I think a lot of parents
previous meeting around like not just removing the judgment and just saying when things aren't going well, that's okay. It's not people are bad, right? It's like, well, we are just identifying something and we say, that's interesting. And looking at it with curiosity to say, what does that mean when our engagement is, or I forget what the metric was, like 80%, whatever. It's like, let's dive into that further. And without that judgment of someone's not doing a good job, right? It's like, there's no one to blame, but it's really, how do we work together to figure out what does that mean for our students and how do we like figure out something about that. So I think that's really, really an opportunity, not to mention, I think what Mary Beth said earlier about like technology and to have just having been able to talk with families and see what's being implemented in terms of learning management systems and different ways of learning. Let me tell you, like kids like video games, right? So seeing some of the things that have come through that are really like educational, but really taking advantage of technology and how you can communicate something just in a easy, compelling way that, wasn't even an option 2 years ago, never mind 5 or 10 years ago, I think is really, really improving how we do what we do. And that feeds upon itself. And that's good for everybody. It's good for employees. It's good for students. It's good for our community. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for that.
If I may, just this theme, and I've said this at the last meeting, education can be a really judgy business. We evaluate, we give grades. The state gives us a dashboard. They say you're not doing enough here. This is a totally different time for us. And we're learning totally new skills. And like I said at the top of the hour, teachers, I think, honestly, are really, and principals and support staff and we and you and families and kids are all really nervous. Are we doing enough? And the truth of the matter is we're never really doing enough. We're always doing. We're going to do more. But I think if you're going to have a growth mindset instead of a fixed deficit mindset, if you're going to live in a new possibility of what we can become, as opposed to judging the past and thinking that we are bad people or we're not good enough, we have to have that mindset that here's the state of play, this is the data we have, and how do we get better? And that's going to be continuous improvement. It's a goal I often speak to. Academic improvement, social emotional improvement, taking care of one another. First, we recognize the issues. And instead of pointing fingers and fixing blame, we fix problems. And I think that is an important concept and one that in the heat of the moment, understandably, as humans, we can lose concept of, but I think that's just such an important point that we are working. I know our teachers are working hard. I know our support staff are working hard. I know our families and our students are working hard, doing totally new things. Learning is about making mistakes and growing. I think Maya Angelou said, first, know what you need to do and then try to do better. I think that's what we're trying to do here. We're laying out a plan that the state requires of us. And I think through the coordination of services team, the triage team, the family engagement team, the plan, stuff that we've already used, we're taking these new tools and applying it to say, how do we know when we need to do more and how do we do more? First, know that we need to do more, then do more.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
I do. I have a comment. I want to echo kind of what Freya said, and first let me start off by saying I appreciate all the work that's being done, and thank you, Leticia, for all the work and head spearing that. And I know you have a full plate as it is, but I would like to see some kind of, just kind of see where we are and like Dr. McFetridge said, see where we need to improve and how things are going and how successful these implementations are. And I know that some of the work has already been done and is continuing, but it's just different. And because it is different, I think it's important to take another look at it and see what needs to be changed or different things that need to be implemented or what is working, right? And I mean, because it's like I said, that every family situation is different, but in a lot of situations, the siblings are the ones that are supporting the online learning for the other kids in the house, and they are engaged, but are they, I think as a parent, and it's not that you don't have an interest, it's just sometimes it's it not being informed and not knowing is important, and not waiting to know it, till you get a report card or one of those conferences and know that, this whole time they're missing out on something or they need to improve on something. And it's difficult because as parents who work very long hours and are not at home, it's very difficult.
Thank you. And I did want to point out to that piece. And so as I mentioned, we are in the process of purchasing these online assessment tools that will help us measure that learning loss. So keeping in mind that at this point, we are still working in integrating that into the system and hopefully giving our teachers access to at least that assessment piece by next week. But of course, that would determine when we'd be able to bring that data to you. But I do have to say that thanks to our task force teams who recommended a program such as ESGI to measure language acquisition, ELD, and language for language in general, including ELD, Lexia Learning for for 3rd through 12th. We just engaged in a training this past Wednesday with our ELA, ELD teachers in secondary and our upper elementary teachers. So we're starting to train, and as soon as this goes live, we will be able to bring back that data that will demonstrate where our students are and how they have been engaged in learning. And so just definitely, I have to see in October, because again, it depends. We might be able to come back in October, but there might be a little piece of, if the assessments are not integrated into our system, it just depends on that, of how soon that'll be integrated. But if we have the data, we can definitely bring it to you.
It could also be, Leticia, like data that's available around attendance, or like, just to get some sense.
Attendance data we have.
Yeah, because I know that's actively being looked at, I assume, because I know hearing little bits and pieces of it around the different schools, as well as like qualitatively a little bit more what's going on as well. So just kind of a flavor, knowing that it's a work, it's like an emerging, it's like you have the clay on the spinning wheel and it's like starting to take shape. So we don't know what the handle's going to look like, but just kind of a little bit of a flavor, I think would be, fantastic to hear.
Yes. I mean, we definitely do have pieces of the data.
Yeah.
It's data. We have qualitative data that we can obtain, and definitely we do have some of our teachers are already starting the assessments. So yes, so we can definitely bring that, and of course bring you give you updates on where we are on the engagement piece.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Leticia, I just want to second that from Sophia, that I don't think any of us is talking about a full-on complete assessment. Again, just like this plan is a work in progress, I think what we're asking for is a work in progress of where are we now, how's it going, as part of what Sean was talking about, our own understanding of the continuous improvement that you're all doing. So that I wasn't trying to make more work for you than what you already kind of have going.
My brain my dissertation, I only used quantitative data. So that tells you the kind of person I am. I get afraid of qualitative data.
Yeah, I like storytelling. The qualitative data is what I
We just
like.
want to hear a story about what's working and what do you want to happen next. Just tell us a story. Mary Beth, did you have any comments or questions on this? Okay, let's go to a vote. Freya?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
Lizette? Lizette? Aye for me.
Aye.
Thank you. Caroline?
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. Next item on the agenda is approval of opening of school handbook.
As Leticia
Yeah,
gets
that's me.
ready,
That is me. I just need to pull something up real quick. Thank you.
yeah, as she's getting ready, I just want to say there is no PowerPoint to accompany this, and she's not going to read a 50-page document, but she's going to tell you the importance of the handbook.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, as you know, we've had lots of questions from multiple stakeholder groups, and it is like what Mr. Contreras said, Jesus, that it's an all hands on deck. And so this handbook was developed with input and written by all of our departments to kind of guide, and we utilize the questions that were given by the California Department of Education Stronger Together Reopening Handbook. And so there are questions that help districts guide and define what this remote learning environment is. And so and also inserts, it has research links as to what research helped us in developing the plan. It also provides kind of a synopsis of how we engage our opening of schools and reopening plan. That's at the beginning. And we hope that this handbook can help the community and our stakeholders in guiding everyone to the direction that we're heading. And so this opening of schools handbook is not here for an approval. It is only information for our community. And please know that similar to all of our plans, we will continue to add information and add questions and update as we move forward. Any questions?
No specific questions, but maybe just also that we then see this again in October or November as things are changing, kind of so that we, as information is evolving, that we're apprised of it as well.
Of course.
Any other questions? Next item on the agenda is E, adoption of resolution number 2820, assigning teachers on the basis of Education Code 44265 credential types.
So this is a requirement from the California Department of Education on the basis of Education Code 44265 credential types. As you know, when we talk about certificated teachers, that's about a certificate, it's about a credential. Education Code requires that teachers who are teaching in subjects not specifically listed on their credentials or who teach in a grade level they're not specifically listed on the credentials must be approved by resolution of the governing board. I remember as a young man years ago, I had to be one of these teachers when I had a supplementary authorization and I could teach in a subject area that was not my dominant subject area. And so under the provisions of the Education Code, employees are assigned to teach as noted on the resolution, assigning teachers on the basis of Education Code. This is a requirement by the state that we put this for your approval. And I won't read the names of the employees there, but basically the resolution is to allow per Education Code and basically says that those listed teachers were hired according to that Education Code. And there are 2 teachers there. And by doing so, they meet those requirements and you pass and adopt this resolution, and we would recommend approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lizette. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we will go to vote. Aye. Freya?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Lizette?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. Next on the agenda is presentation and approval of the 2019-20 unaudited actuals. Mr. Contreras.
Good evening again, President Hines, members of the board. As required by Ed Code 42100, the board is to receive all the final expenditures and the final receipts, all of the as we finished the 2019-20 school year. And Rosie, can you help me with the presentation? Thank you. So this short presentation and the next slide, basically there is a visual of where we are in the 2021 budget, and then where we are also on the 1920. So here we have already started since July 1st, 2021, but we are bringing to you how we finished the school year, the 1920. The next slide basically is one that I gave you in there to tell you where we were back in P1 regarding tax revenue and where we ended up with that tax revenue. The only purpose of this slides is to let you know, or make you feel at ease on the volatility, if that's not a contradiction, I know what is, of what our funding sources are. So as we bring you the different documents at the different times throughout the school year, we just know that those numbers change constantly, and that in this case, for example, we started back in October of thinking of a revenue of 20.9 mil. We end up with a revenue, tax revenue, that is, of 28.5 mil. And this is just the way it is. This is the dynamics of how things change as we go through. Rosie, if you can just give us then the next slide, which is depicting then what is that happened. You are familiar with this format. This is what the SACS software tells us, and basically accounting for our revenue and expenditures and what happened at the end. So with this also, you have seen in the packet all of this this information, detailed program by program, then slides by object, slides by function, slides by program, but it is basically this information. The important is in the next slide that of this presentation is, Rose, in the next slide that I circled two very important numbers. One of them is what was the net increase in fund balance, those $806,000. Now, let's go back, Rosie, to the previous one. Oh, Rosie, can you go back to the previous slide? So the importance, the next one.
Looks like there might be a lag. You mean slide 5, Jesus?
Okay. All righty. So the next slide, Rosie. Oh. Okay. Something.
Disappeared.
Well, the slide where we were you have the presentation also in the packet. The biggest numbers in there is that those $806,000 that I mentioned to you, and that is what the fund that is important for this presentation. I guess we're not going to be able to go back to that slide. And also that we end up with a fund balance of $5.3 million. So as with those $806,000 that we have in there, those are dollars that the board can decide to use for either bringing into fund balance as now we have it, or we can apply it forward. Now, that compared with the budget that was approved for 2021 gives you the differences between that number and what our deficit spending that we were anticipating, that we are anticipating in our budget. But those two numbers are very important for right now to keep in mind as the board can then determine what those $806,000 can be used as we go into continuing into the 2021 school year. So this is the bottom line of closing the books on 2021. This is the real thing. This is what happened. This is one of the few moments in budgeting where you know exactly what was. So on the next slide, the purpose of being in there is only to remind you that with the assumptions that we had, the next slide is one that you have seen, and that it is what our reality was and how the budget that was adopted, and those assumptions as we had them for at the budget approval. That's the only purpose of that slide in here. So as we go forward, I just want you to tell you that in the middle of the next slide, I want to remind you that though we have heard that those $14 million on the next slide that we had $14 million that were withheld by the County of San Mateo for the San Mateo Controller's Office have continued to affect our cash flow. And you know that we have recently, on August 11, we got funded one of our trans notes for $15 million. So just wanted to keep you abreast on the notion of our cash flow as we also go with into our 2021 school year. I want to remind you that those $806,000 are available to the board for disposition on either continuing. It's independent of this $14 million. Our cash flow crisis is not a crisis that has to do that it is linked to our revenue. This is one that it is linked to those $14 million that we just that were withheld from us. So we know that our cash flow crisis will continue, but I'll keep you informed. That's how we are facing this. And on the next slide, I just want to. It's basically the same information from the previous slide. This is the cash situation where you see the $14 million that are now and that we had to take a loan at the time from the San Mateo County Office of Education that we then transferred to the TRAN, but that's basically the same information as in the previous slide. And then the last slide is regarding our other funds. And then other funds ended like this. As you see, our biggest one in here, two important things. One, to the cafeteria fund, number 13, that we needed to make a contribution from the general fund because of our COVID-19 and not having students. So there was a contribution. And the other big one is the notion of our building fund, that is Fund 21, where we keep all of the bond dollars that is currently sitting at about $40 million. And those $40 million, which cannot be used for operations, those $40 million that we have in that Fund 21 are used only for construction, for remodeling of our schools, or building new schools. So these are the ending balances on those funds. And with that, I just those are the highlights of what we presented to you in the 138 pages that constitute the report, where the data and numbers are sliced one way or another. But these are the highlights. With that, does the board have any? The board members of the board have any questions that I can answer?
Thank you so much. Before we jump to questions, do I have a motion to approve this presentation of the 2019-20 unaudited actuals?
So moved.
Thank you, Lizette. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And now questions.
I've got a question for you, Jesus.
Sure.
On the liabilities slide, I think that was the ERAF loan on there.
Mm-hmm.
What about our other loan, the trans? Why doesn't that show up on there?
Because the San Mateo County Office of Education lent us the $14 million to not to end in negative balances. So those are the $14 million that you see there. The TRAN was funded on August 11th. So it is not part of when we closed the books on June 30th. So
okay. Well, and so that will show up next year.
Exactly. This $14 million will show us paid.
Okay.
And then you will see.
Hopefully it will show us paid.
We're looking forward to see those dollars.
Yes.
On that topic of cash flow, Jesus, so is it accurate to say that our cash flow crisis is for the reasons of ERAF? And is that because basically we're getting that loan at a schedule that is delayed relative to our expenditures?
It is delayed relative to our expenditures, yes. And that's why we're in need of the County Office of Education lending us those dollars, not to end in negative balances.
Right. So that will help us avoid that issue. And so I know with the community funded, or sometimes called basic aid status, also just that revenue payment schedule is different from what we were used in the past through, state funded or LCFF funded, because it's more largely based on your local property tax revenue. So it aligns with when the taxes are actually collected. And so again, those revenues are and that's why community funded districts by nature always have a cash flow issue, because you're always getting your money later than when you need to spend it. Do we have that delay as well?
We do, okay. Because
so we bridge the ERAF thing with the loan, but we have the basic aid or community funded schedule that we're living with. So that's challenging. And then
we flip back and forth. So that's
I'm talking about this year though. Yeah. So this year.
It actually, our storm has multiple storms.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to kind of figure out the layers of the storm. Because the flip back and forth just makes it generally confusing. Although it is nice in a way because we got that $2 million last year and we'll get that $2 million next year when we flip back. I'm like, thank goodness, because otherwise this would be a very different conversation if we weren't flipping. So it's a roller coaster, but like in those ups, man, those are like, thank goodness, because those numbers, like that 800,000 that you mentioned earlier, like that number would have been minus, negative 1.2 million if we hadn't gotten that amount last year. Exactly. So that saved our proverbial bacon, if you will, last year, to help us give us that bit of buffer. This year we don't have that benefit of the bonus, and next year the estimate is another 2 million as we flip back, economic conditions notwithstanding. So that's helpful to know that there are like those multiple challenges with our cash flow. And so going back, could you mind going back to the slide with the forecast also? And while we pull that up, to just, thank you and just reiterate the importance of knowing, as you said, the volatility of school budgets is like mind-boggling, to just know how much like orders of magnitude you could just, change, particularly in compounded complex situations with COVID.
Was it slide 6? Was it slide 6 you were referring to?
The one with the colorful one with the forecast.
Slide 6.
So that slide is the one that is our world as the board approved the budget.
Exactly.
That's our world as the board approved the budget.
Okay.
And so that is. That's going to be different. As you see, we are anticipating one way, and it when we finally closed the books, it was slightly different. Mm-hmm. And then as we move forward with those assumptions that we had as of June 29th, as of the signage of the California budget, that's how we were anticipating. Mm-hmm. And you also see, as you said, that we would be considering with our same patterns, the patterns of spending as we have, that we would be carrying a deficit into the out years, but we would be meeting our 3% reserve for 2 years, and then only in the when the 22-23 we would not. So these are the assumptions as of back in June 29th.
I just want to point out that 2 members of the Business Services Department from the San Mateo County Office of Education are among the attendees tonight, because they go to districts when we're talking business and budgets and projections. And when you look at that slide, it says the Cabrillo Unified School District revised budget summary and multi-year projections with the California signed budget assumptions. And this is what the legislature and the governor wound up approving finally. And so those assumptions really are, they're not made up numbers. They get provided to us. They're applied through a FICMAC calculator. And all this is just a giant, crazy, confusing, math problem. But it's numbers that we don't create. They're based on assumptions, revenue assumptions, and we don't control that. We control our expenses. And I just will mark that this is a better place than we were last year at this time, right? Last year, we were forced to list all kinds of cuts and savings. And then in January, we had a very rosy picture from the governor. And then in March, we had a positive budget certification in the third out year. It looked like it was in the black and positive. And then that very night, was the night when we were saying, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with COVID. The next day we closed our schools. And then we had what has been referred to as a doomsday budget by the governor. And we went through that time, and then it got better, still not great, not as good as January with the proposed original governor's budget, but it brought us some relief, and that this number came down. But this is not of our making. And I say that all to say that at the end of the board meeting tonight, there will be a resolution basically asking for support of increased educational funding through the Communities First Act. And that could be relief going forward, but we don't know if it'll pass in November, right? So this picture could change with funding changes in the state. The reason why this looks like it looks is because people have suggested that COVID will have an economic drain or downturn for us that is tantamount akin to the recession of 2008. So this is not something that we enjoy presenting. These are the numbers that we are given, the assumptions that we are provided, that we have to put through a calculator based on what we're given. And it is okay for the first 2 years. And then a third year, we have a problem. So I want to mark for the public and for the board and for those who are watching this, knowing that our expenses, our revenues affect our expenses. This will change over time, but you see a deficit spending pattern in the district. There is still work in the district to do to get us into financial health. It is not as dire a picture as we had last year, but it is still one where we have work to do. Members of the community, employees have asked us to comb the budget. We will continue to do that. I don't want to talk about it in relation to negotiations because I've been held to task before about trying to explain this and saying that I'm negotiating in public. I don't mean to do that. I just want to point out for this purpose and for our County Office of Education visitors, we are presenting the revised budget summary with the numbers that we have and showing that tonight.
And these numbers will change when we take them into first interim, because the dynamics of change are more than, according to some of my colleagues who have been doing this for many a year. I mean, the dynamics are tremendously dynamic, and they're changing and changing and changing. So
I don't think we've seen a year like this. We were talking to School Services of California folks recently about this, and they said we've never seen a district that is going in and out of basic aid really be in this kind of situation. And it is because of COVID. It is because of ERAF. It is because of longstanding issues and structural deficit problems. We need to address those structural deficit problems because we know that we need to make sure our expenses meet our needs, and that's the education of children and the compensation of employees who educate and support our children and families. So that said, this will change. We know that this last year has been extremely confusing because of the cards we've been dealt and the cards we've been dealt and the cards we've been dealt. Like I said, last year at this time, very dire picture. January, very rosy picture. March, completely different picture. Then not a great picture, then a slight relief. This will be changing over time. And we just hope that everybody can understand it's a year like none of us have seen in our careers.
I think that's helpful, Sean, and Jesus, that context, just in terms of the extra volatility we have right now because of the pandemic and recession and related situations. I appreciate your kind of giving that historical context too, in terms of at that a year ago we were in a acutely dire situation, and I think the expectation at the time was not solving that problem, but really stabilizing so that over time we could solve it for the longer term. So I'm really thrilled that we're at that place now where we're looking not in the current year, and granted there's a little bit of luck because of the rules of basic aid that we got a little bit of a bump, but we're looking at like 2 years out having some issue, mainly because of that row, the ongoing deficit spending. And I think that's also appreciated your point, Sean, about like really needing to continue to look at that. And at the end of the day, it's like what's coming in, what's going out. As if, the closer those numbers align, the more steady state that you have, the more it goes in the red, the more at risk you are, the more in the black, the more of a cushion you have for future uncertainties. So knowing this all can change, I think that's the important takeaway here for me that continues is based on current assumptions, which are always changing, especially in a very dynamic environment that we find ourselves in right now. We always work with the best that we have, and that's always the nature of any forecast, be it a budget forecast, be it an epidemiological forecast, what have you. The closer you get to the date, the more real those numbers are. So we know those numbers for this year, those are probably closer to what's going to pan out to be the reality than 2 years out. But looking at those trends gives us some sense of qualitatively, again, going back to that concept earlier, what we're looking at. So thank you for looking at it in that way.
I just want to echo what you're both saying as well. That budget deficit does really worry me. I mean, we made pretty massive cuts last year, and now looking at this year and going forward, we're running a budget deficit of about $2.5 million a year. The only reason we're saved in that 2021 year is because hopefully we get that supplemental $2 million bump. Otherwise, that year would be around $2.5 million too. So I just want to, echo what both of you saying, and also let you know that it's a serious concern of mine that we are still spending significantly amounts more than what is coming in. So
yeah, I think
more work to do, I guess. And I know we're probably doing cuts again this year, and that will make it look better. But it's hard coming off a year of hard, deep cuts, and we're going to have to do them again, and they won't be so bad this time around, I don't think. So we'll get there. But
I think it's important to, like you said, Mary Beth, to see like there's a sea of numbers here. It's easy to get lost in them. And I appreciate you, Jesus, you're pulling up the important ones for us, and conceptually realizing on a, $36 million budget, we're spending almost $2.5 million more than we're bringing in. That's just important. And that we recognize that and, are prepared for it.
Our savings account can't save us forever. It'll run dry here shortly.
Rent's going up.
The rent's going up, yeah.
Plus, it's like both numbers, right? Even though those both numbers change just a little bit, it could have a big effect.
Mm-hmm.
So the revenues and the expenditures.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say for the public and for our employees and for you, we are committed to looking at combing the budget, continuing to comb the budget, continuing to work with our bargaining units to look at how we can address these issues for the needs that we have, families and employees alike. That commitment is outstanding, and we'll keep working at it. And every district does this every year, where they're trying to figure out how do they balance their budget and how do they balance the needs of their community and their employees.
No, and I'll just end with a plug I know Jesus will be pulling together the budget financial advisory committee. And I'm looking forward to participating with Mary Beth again on that. Not again, I say it again, but I think to have the community input on, what are the creative ideas and opportunities we have on both of those levers, right? Again, it's two numbers that factor in here. Three, I guess, if you count our ending balance from the prior year, or savings, it's our revenues and our expenditures. Those are our two levers further to the savings, and how can we get those in our favor?
So we will be doing that at our budget committee, but also starting this September 30th, I'm going to be to get the general public, to get all of our stakeholders the opportunity to ask questions. I will be conducting office hours every every month, where I am going to be in Zoom on one of the platforms from 4 to 6 p.m. And I will have some basic, have our schools funded, what's basic aid, what makes it a basic aid, and how does that happen? And around that, also get some information out, but also get some input, some feedback from our stakeholders.
That's fantastic. And I know the topic of school finance can be very daunting because it's incredibly complex. So I would definitely recommend, particularly folks in the public that want to learn more. We have some great resources that you've pulled together, Jesus, and, stemmed a little bit from our conversations last year on the district website. Simply in the About Us section under financial information, there are videos and presentations of the presentations we gave last year that explained a little bit about how school funding works in California that could be helpful context for those that are looking to understand it better and participate, because I think that those informed inputs are really, really, really helpful.
Thanks. So we have a lot of comment. Do I have any other questions? Thanks. I think also I would like to add one piece, and that would be, while it is important to budget, to balance our budget in the long run, it's as important to do the strategic planning, know where our gaps are, and make sure we're making wise decisions, not just based on a marker to axe things out. It's really important to have some sense of what our values are for the whole district and maintain those with a long-term vision. So thank you for all you've done on this, Jesus. Are there any other questions, or are we ready to go to vote? Okay. Freya?
Aye.
Aye for me. Sophia?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
Lizette?
Aye.
And Caroline?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion to pass the budget presentation passes 5+1. Next on our agenda is the adoption of Resolution 2920, implementing pre-qualification of construction contractors under Public Contract Code 20111.6, utilizing the Quality Bidders Questionnaire Service.
Quality Bidders is an organization that vets all of the contractors. And in this pre-qualification, through their questionnaire and investigation, they produce pools of contractors from which we can go in and conduct our own bidding. So if there are any, there are several levels, and we're bringing to the board for approval this, as you saw in the type of questions and the scrutiny that Quality Bidders is doing for each and every one of the contractors. They typically allows us to have a pool of contractors from which to go in and continue and do our own biddings from as we get any of our projects. So as we're bringing this resolution to the board and for adoption, so do you have any questions about this resolution?
Before we go to questions, first, do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Freya. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Questions? Hearing none, we can go to vote. Freya?
Aye.
Aye. Mary Beth?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Lizette?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. Thank you, Jesus, for bringing that forward. And I'm sure it's going to be constructive having the contractors queued up and available to us.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, adoption of resolution 30-20 approving GAN limit.
As part of the unaudited actuals, you saw documentation that it is required that to present to the board for approval a GAN limit. This is something that was from back in 1979, where the voters approved the proposition 4, and it has to do with always making sure that the board establishes those limits. And then, as you saw the schedule, we are within those limits. So it is, we're bringing forward for approval to the board.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve our GAN limit?
Resolution.
I'm sorry, our resolution.
Aye.
Thank you, Lizette. Do I have a second?
Aye.
Thank you, Sophia. Do we have any questions or comments about the resolution? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. Aye. Freya?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Lizette?
Aye.
Thank you. Mary Beth?
Aye.
Thanks. And Caroline?
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. That brings us to adoption of resolution number 3120, declaring the result of the education parcel tax election held on November 5, 2019, and authorizing the San Mateo County Controller to levy the education parcel tax.
So I'm going to present on this very quickly, very briefly, because I see that we're going to be able to get out of this meeting, hopefully, without having to have you move to go past 10 o'clock, right? So this basically is a requirement of our SCI auditors who need a resolution saying that you accept and authorize the San Mateo County Controller to levy the education parcel tax. We are so pleased that it passed last November. And we went through that, and of course it's official, and that was a replacement or a renewal of the parcel tax for $1.6 million. But we need a resolution, and this is purely a bureaucratic function that we make sure that we show auditors that you all are in approval of that money and of the election results. And that's it.
Thank you for that description. Do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead, Mary Beth.
Thanks. I think we can go straight to vote on this.
Can I just say one? I just
Sure,
never
go ahead.
want to miss an opportunity of saying thank you to our community for approving this last November. And the
Absolutely.
committee and the folks who worked hard on it.
Thanks. Freya?
Aye.
Aye. Mary Beth?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Lizette?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. That brings us to adoption of resolution number 3220, endorsing Schools and Communities Funding Act.
So this is the last item, but it is a very important item. You've just seen how volatile the education budget is. We had a recession in 2008. Last year, we finally got to close to making good on education funding. And then we had this occurrence happen again, COVID-19, the impact on the budget really impacts us. And luckily, people in the past few years have been working on Proposition 15, which is the Schools and Communities Funding Act. And so this is a resolution in support of that act. I was just getting an email actually from a state activists saying they wanted us to put a resolution like this in the October meeting. We knew that this would be coming, and we had this lined up for September. I want to thank Rosie Acosta for reminding me that I had this resolution ready to go. So Proposition 13, 1978, I remember I was in 7th grade, really started to stop taxation, and it was done so that people could stay in their homes. However, there was a loophole, and the loophole was for commercial properties. And so for years, commercial properties have never been reassessed in their tax. And so the intent of Prop 13 was to help homeowners, but loopholes permitted major commercial, major industrial properties to avoid reassessment. It was a windfall to big business and corporations, and it was at the expense of the public. It was at the expense of children. And since Prop 13, you've seen California funding of schools go from in the top 10 of the states to the bottom 10 of the states. So that property tax basically resulted by being frozen, never being reassessed. We really have pupil funding of $3,400 less than the national average, but our cost of living is the highest in the nation, or among the highest in the nation. We are the 5th largest economy in the world as a state, but yet this is just terrible how we fund our schools in the future and the future generation for our economy, et cetera, et cetera. So the resolution basically suggests that if we had more funding, we could have more equitable and fair education for students. We've talked about how many students we have who are English language learners, who are low socioeconomic status. In many ways, we're a microcosm of the state. We have a lot of differences in income levels, in parent education levels. And the research is that you need to fund schools to get better results. You could see from the last budget item, we don't have enough to do what we need to do for both our students and our employees and our system and our buildings. And so the California Attorney General has identified that reassessing commercial property would increase $6 to $10 billion in property taxes in the state. And the Schools and Local Communities Funding Act will be on the ballot in November 2020. And the measure provides for $2 to $4 billion annually for schools. And that could mean a lot of money for us, according to this advocate. And I just think this is important. They said to me, please remember, Cabrillo Unified will receive approximately $1.9 million annually. This is what this activist is telling me if Prop 15 passes. If we had $1.9 million more annually, we'd be out of this problem. So the resolution, our recommendation to you is that you as a board endorse the Schools and Local Communities Funding Act, and we would implore our citizens to vote, whether they vote for it or against it. We implore you to participate in the census. We implore you to vote in November. However you vote, vote. But know that voting on the Schools and Communities Funding Act, whether you choose to or not, could result in $1.9 million for the district. That's an easy sell. But my sell tonight to the board is, please, we recommend you approve this resolution.
Thank you. Before we have comments or questions, do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Sophia. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Freya. I guess I do have one. As much as I appreciate how important school funding is and how difficult the whole education funding mix is, my frustration that we don't have any type of locality index in California where other states do. I know that the whole budgeting thing for education is really messed up. I do see the decline, Dr. McFetridge, that we've had with Prop 13, and that loophole has really done us a disservice, not having the businesses taxed. Is there going to be a difference in the way it impacts big businesses holding large properties versus small businesses, our restaurants and small shops in this community?
As I understand it, this is a reassessment, as I understand it, of Prop 15. It's a reassessment of really large businesses.
I think I can speak to that a little bit. So my understanding is that for smaller businesses that are leasing, that may have triple net lease agreements, basically what that lease agreement does is say that, you know, you're responsible for the taxes. So for people that have triple net lease agreements, it could impact them because that would increase the portion that they're paying, is my understanding.
And I just wanted to be aware of that.
So just so you know, I have Googled it, bless you, Google, and the note here in Ballotpedia says the ballot initiative would make an exception for properties whose business owners have 3 million or less in holdings in California. So we're really talking about businesses with holdings above $3 million. Those properties, 3 million or less, would be taxed based on their purchase price. And the ballot initiative would exempt a small business's tangible personal property from taxes and $500,000 in value for a non-small business's tangible personal property. So you're really talking about businesses above the 3 million or above holdings.
Well, the price of their building? What's the 3 million?
In holdings.
For the business.
Oh, business holdings.
For the business holdings. Yeah, so accounts and things like that.
Okay.
Look, Prop 13 basically taxed on purchase price. The tax is limited to no more than 1% of the purchase price. Annual adjustment equal to the rate of inflation or 2%. Market and values in California have increased faster than 2% per year. And that means that the taxable value of commercial and industrial properties is often lower than the market value. What I think Prop 15 does is creates a process whereby they would reassess, but only of larger businesses with more than $3 million in holdings. And so it's really not about small business. It's really about big business.
Well, and the problem with commercial property versus homes are, you know, eventually homes usually change hands, where that commercial property can go decades and decades without changing hands and therefore being reassessed. So.
Yeah, not to pick on anybody, but if you know the Lockheed Corporation, remember they have been taxed on their initial property acquisition back to the 70s, and that number is only slightly crept up, but their increase in, you know, profits to their owners and to their shareholders has increased radically. So let's make no mistake about this. For those who are for Prop 13 because of what it was sold as in the late 70s about keeping grandmothers and grandfathers and people in their homes, this does not affect homeowners. It only affects businesses, and it's only commercial properties valued with holdings of $3 million, above $3 million. So I do question, I do not think this will impact small business. And if you're thinking about local small business, I don't think this is going to affect Cafe Society. I don't think this is going to affect Tres Amigos across the street. I think this is about really large properties and companies that have millions of dollars in holdings. And the proponents of Prop 15 are basically saying, how do we have a good economy if we don't educate our public? I'll just point out, 1980, we had 13 prisons. Now we have 33. There's something wrong with this picture when we've quintupled our number of prisoners and all the expenses we spend on that. And there seems to me something about when you underinvest in education, all the other social service costs go up. So, the board can make its decision. I'm making a sell for it. I'm recommending it. The California Teachers Association recommends it. Many liberals, such as myself, would recommend this. And I just told you my estimation, or what I'm told, is this could mean as much as $1.5 to $2 million for this district, which would get us out of our deficit spending currently.
Thank you. And I appreciate thinking about understanding it and not just rubber stamping it. So thanks for the conversation.
I think it is an important educational point, and I'll say it again, shameless plug. Everybody needs to participate in the census. Everybody, if they can, needs to vote. We're going to have voting week up at the high school. We're going to encourage all our 18-year-olds to vote. I'm not going to encourage people to vote more than once, but I'm going to encourage everybody to vote at least once. It's your right.
Yep.
It's your right. It's your duty. We hope you will all vote, and we will hope you will vote for the needs of the people and the needs of your small, beautiful district and community here.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Aye. Freya.
Aye.
Mary Beth.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Lizette.
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Motion passes 5+1. Future events, September 16, PTO Alliance meeting via Zoom at 9 a.m. October 1, CUSD and City of Half Moon Bay 2x2 meeting via Zoom at 3 p.m. October 8th, regular board meeting via Zoom, 7 p.m. Can't believe we're already so far into September. There ends our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Aye. Freya.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Lizette.
Oh my God, aye.
Mary Beth.
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
And we did it in the nick of time. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.